Alright, everybody, use psychology. I like to talk about human rights, and since I'm being so frank about things like this as of late, I feel it's only right to talk about something that's been bothering me since I was 15 years old. That's when I ran away from the foster home and got a job with a rented room and some roommates. I did everything a so-called adult did, more so than some, but I didn't get a license, voting rights, and if I wanted to have sex with someone who was on the same level, I was supposed to ask the so-called legal guardians for consent. It seemed like the only rights I had were to do what I was told when I knew more than half the kooks trying to indoctrinate me into being corporate drone. The fucked up thing is that there were 30-year-olds who were in the so-called community who were cutting my grass with the 13-year-olds. As a 15-year-old, I was bringing back to the pad I rented because they had cars and guns and authority that I didn't. I think my friend Lizzie got turned out by one of them. And the so-called community didn't help me because I was selling drugs to make money on the side. Because, of course, they don't pay, like, kids a decent wage if they're working, because you have to work with all the immigrants. But anyways, it seemed back then that the drug crowd were the only ones who took me seriously, like a human being instead of only a pupil to be dilated. Like, I get where consent laws and licensing requirements come from, as in the developmental stages and that, but to me it's more a matter of interfering with somebody who is in a position where they haven't yet had the opportunities or denied the rights and resources to exercise such. Kind of like the third world. Speaking of which, I think it's fucked up that people here in the U.S. get to go to the Virgin Islands or Thailand or Nigeria and fuck kids, like actual kids, which I consider to be under 12, or pubescent kids that couldn't get away with fucking without daddy's consent here in America. All you pedo bears, virginity is only $50 in Bangladesh, and you'd be doing the Lord's work by feeding a family for a month. But unlike so-called Christian, you're going to meet somebody just like me to hang a fucking millstone around your neck when you get back. That's actually in the Bible, by the way. To quote Jesus himself, Luke 18, verse 3. And there was a widow in that city, and she came unto him, saying, Avenge me of my adversary. And again, think not that I came to bring peace, but a sword. Inshallah, you all might look it up your own self, but history proves it says whatever the priest says it should. Like those so-called pastors and vicarious parents children get left with, who teach kids how to drink from the cup of muddy waters before they time. Everybody does it, but nobody talks about it, right? Nobody will listen if you tell. And mommy and daddy will go away for a long time. I'll buy you that toy. Don't let me down. Then there's the shame like it's somehow your fault. And when you get older, they tell you your memory is wrong. They only keep putting pictures of the so-called good times. So unless you can read the quiet desperation in their eyes, you think everything was okay. You know, I never wanted to go to Disneyland growing up. I wanted to climb trees and make rafts and float down the river like Huck Finn, or build a fort in the forest and go camping with friends my own age and maybe hunt some wabbit. But nowadays, people like David Cooper swipe 6-year-olds from their backyards and brutally rape and murder them. And people like Robert Pandina falsify doctorates in medicine to defend people like him and lie to put people like me in prison for 7 years. 70 years. Never mind what would happen to a kid floating down the Passaic on a raft or camping in the Pinelands. Think about that. This stinks. We need to clean our armpits, am I right? Kids should get rights and have votes too. You're human all the way from birth to 18 anyways. It's the whole not my problem mentality that keeps people from fighting for that when they get older. And a sick, possessive insecurity. Elijah came back as John the Baptist, right? What happens if you come back as a black chick in Newark? Reincarnation promotes responsibility. Act accordingly.